Welcome to Popternative, where we dive into topical discussions from the worlds of pop culture, social media, and sports. Here is your host, Peter Remoliotis, aka PD Beats.
It's good to see everyone again. How's it going?
Hi, Peter. Good to see you. Alternative.
Absolutely. I will say this. I watch a lot of TV and film because, it's part of the gig and everything. Yeah. And I'm going to be honest with you, non-biased, right?
All right.
In terms of what this show looks like, these set designs, the color palette, there's no competition. There's no competition.
Yeah.
Let me tell you something. I was not in the pilot. They called to add me into the show after the pilot. And they said, when Amy was describing the character to me, she said, I'll send you the pilot and you could decide. And I was exactly like you. I went, oh my God. I have never, ever seen anything that is so magnificent. Dan said something very interesting, which is, he said, people in the business don't think that comedy should be beautiful. And he said, we wanted to make a comedy like a Martin Scorsese movie. And that's exactly what they did. And he said, even the way they budget comedy, they think, you get a couple funny people, you get some witty writing, you don't need anything else. And this show, the clothes and the production values and the sets are unparalleled.
And the acting and absolutely. The acting, the story arcs, 100%. But in terms of just how this show looks.
Visual.
You're right. No, you're right. In fact, I'm doing something in Romania. That sounds so funny. What a sentence. I'm in Romania working on something, but I'm here today. And I was talking to the people who are, DPs and the lighting and all that. And I mentioned David Mullen, who's our DP, and Jim McConkey, who's our Steadicam operator, who's really a dance creator extraordinaire in a way. And I mentioned, and it was like suddenly I was the queen because they were like, oh my God, you're working with like geniuses. And they were like, we don't touch what those guys are doing. And it's true because those shots that they're coming up with, it's like color, each one is like a Renoir painting or something, I mean, it's so visually scrumptious.
And when you think of how many people are in these episodes and you'd go in for your costume fitting, Donna was making everybody belong together, color-wise. I was only interested in me.
No, you're right. You kind of go like, there was a scene at one point in the Catskills where all of us are watching a dance number or something, and we actually shot that particular scene here, but I remember looking in Brooklyn, if you recall this moment, and looking around and going like, this is like the best film I've ever seen in terms of like one moment of one scene.
Even things that don't even seem like it's that big of a deal, like the family dinners, right? Like the family dinners just seem like the wide shots and everything.
I know. It's a Scorsese film. It's true.
It's true. And I didn't even know that comedy is the stepchild of the kinds of things you're talking about. And Amy and Dan wanted to bring it forward and elevate it, and they absolutely have.
And I'm just saying, because if you both of you saying it might be kind of biased because you're on the show, I'm saying
but you are right. You're right. No. I always feel embarrassed. I love, like you, I love a lot of work that I see, and then I watch it and I go, but that doesn't really hold a candle to what I mean, other work is written beautifully and it's funny and smart and all this, but visually we are. Yes, is it okay to say we're on another level?
You are, absolutely, because you'll watch certain episodes of it, especially in season 3 and season 4, where there's a lot of kind of characters kind of figuring a lot of stuff out. Sometimes you're rooting for characters and it's like, they took kind of a pit stop on their arc, right? And everything. But then you're like, that looks so good. You're right.
I know.
And keep this in mind, they shot 2 of those seasons during a pandemic where there were so many restrictions about how many people could be on a set and how many people could be next to each other. And when we took off the same 2 years that everybody else did, and I thought, this show has such scope and such largesse. Now are we all going to be in the kitchen, having talking heads, which is what a lot of television looks like. And we got the first episode and it was at Coney Island on a Wonder Wheel. And I went, they are not going to calm down. They are just not going to.
And then they had the Broadway stage in which they built like a theater inside a sound stage, And I remember the actors that they had hired came in, who are big Broadway actors, and started weeping because they were like, we haven't been in a real theater and you've just built a theater for us.
Well, when I spoke to Michael last year about he was talking about how big it was, like how tall it was. Like that was something he kind of realized. Was it kind of, because both of you worked on a lot of sets before, but how like the big, like actually like how big and tall it was that kind of eye-opening as well?
Yes. It was. I've done a lot of work, and I've never ever seen anything like it. And in a way, it feels like you're cheating as an actor because it does a lot. You put on all those clothes, you walk into, as like Marin said, you walk into that theater. You know, when the pandemic happened, we originally shot when Moish and Shirley got to move up to Forest Hills into their suburban house. It was someone's home, and it was tricked out to be the 50s. Then there's a pandemic. They obviously did not want us to come back. So they built that house on a soundstage, an exact replica. I would leave at the end of the shot, walk out the front door, and look like, both ways to make sure there were no cars coming. And then I would realize, oh, I'm not anywhere real. I just thought, oh, is there any cars coming? They went, Caroline, it's a soundstage. There's no cars on the soundstage.
The bathrooms were felt so real that there were times the first few years that I actually sat down like about to go to the bath. I mean, I swear, like the details were incredible. Like
things that you would never see.
Right.
See how big of a deal the sets and the color palette is. This whole interview is about how the show looks.
I know. Exactly. Well, that's okay.
Hopefully you like the acting too.
Yeah.
And the writing.
Before we wrap up, I mean, the arcs of all these characters, I mean, the family component is something. I always thought that, you know, a lot of these characters are on kind of journeys, but the family component was my favorite thing about this. I always loved when the families get together at the dinner and everything. So, Marin, we'll start with you.
Yeah.
Looking back at all the seasons, what was your favorite kind of moment in the arc of your character specifically? Looking back at everything, is there anything specifically you loved or like a little pocket storyline?
I'm gonna answer it really quickly in two ways. So just what you said is every time that we got to be together with the two families. So for instance, moving into Moish and Shirley's house, those scenes were like having a holiday. You know, the best parts of family holidays, and because they made everybody laugh so much. I mean, I go home and feel like guilty that I would get paid for such a thing. But then take it to the travel, going to Catskills, France. I'm sorry, this is a big answer, and then also Miami, but particularly France. I mean, how can one not?
That was a huge kind of swerve for the audience.
Unreal. It's unreal that they got us on planes to arrive. I actually had fittings. You know this, right? They did a fitting because they had these beautiful ateliers, like making this stuff for me. And I think I got off the plane just going like, you know, pinch, pinch, pinch. And then when we actually shot it, I could not believe that I was in that city. I could not believe I was out along the Seine and seeing, you know, Notre Dame behind me. So I would say, basically I answered every single scene was the most extraordinary thing I've ever gotten to work on. Sorry, that was not a real answer.
Caroline, before we wrap up very quickly, what are you, any specific arc that you like the most?
For me, I would say what, independent of Shirley, what I enjoyed the most is when we were all together in the Catskills, because I didn't know anything about the Catskills. It had never been part of my narrative growing up. And they said, this is what New Yorkers used to do in the summer. And I really felt like we were all there together having a summer vacation. It was so fun and it was so interesting. I had to learn how to play Mahjong, and these women really knew what they were doing.
And wear your fur.
And I got to wear a fur in August.
Oh, absolutely.
Very important.
Crazy.
Absolutely. It was
just songs, you know, remember the songs we were all singing together. Basically, we all get to go to camp. We went to camp.
Absolutely. It was actually an honor and privilege to speak to both of you. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Peter.
We'll see you soon.
Thanks.
Bye.
Thank you for tuning in to Popternative. Make sure to check out our past episodes of Popternative on YouTube. Be sure to like Popternative on Facebook and follow us on Twitter.
This has been an Autograph Communications production.